here on the sacred soil, right where we are. We're reminded that it's love which moves the course of history and moves it always toward freedom, always. From Bunker Hill to Bastogne to Cantigny to Coral Sea, from Gettysburg to Guadalcanal and Concord to Kabul. America's best and America's bravest have fought, bled, and died so that we could pick up the torch of liberty, raise it high, 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 and carry it onward to places they could never have dreamed of before.
I was hanging out with friends, my best girl and myself, down on the mall in Washington, D.C. for Rolling Thunder and my friends, our friends at Rolling Thunder. Walt and Paul and the gang, and lots of fun. It was a beautiful Memorial Day weekend here in Washington, D.C., to be sure. Hanging out with Sherman and John and getting the job done. Law enforcement, the police, the Democrats want to defund them and firebomb them and do all those left-wing things because they're not liberals, they're the left. But a very happy Memorial Day Tuesday to you, yesterday being Memorial Day itself, Memorial Day Monday. But I hope you had a great American weekend. I'm sure that you did. How could you not? So easy to be happy, isn't it? I don't know what's wrong with the left. They're not happy unless they're not happy. But it's the one thing they're good at, so maybe they should keep it up. Just I should say I was listening to the radio this morning, the local news on the great WMAL, and John Matthews. Turns out it was a regular shooting gallery in Washington, D.C. over the weekend. How many people were shot, Michael? I think we had like six shot and killed, not counting those shot and wounded. It's like a war zone around here. There were weekends in Fallujah that were less violent than Memorial Day weekend in Washington, D.C. The reason is Democrats shoot an awful lot of people. Pretty amazing stuff, these Democrats. So I'll update you on that because there's a lot to say about all that for sure. And we've got a lot going on not only in D.C. but across the country. And in Chicago, for example, where the radical extremist Democrat mayor, Let's Go Brandon Johnson, Chicago mayor posted about, quote, Africa Day, end quote, and Latin. He said Latin, not Latino, but Latin. What happened to Latinx? I prefer Latinx from the Democrats. Latine, Latin community. This is his Memorial Day remembrance. He talks about Africa Day and the Latin community, which is another example of them butchering the English language, for which they have nothing but contempt. The English language, because it represents civilization itself, and the left is here to burn civilization to the ground. And they can do it, one gunshot wound at a time, can't they? Honestly, the local news this morning was almost breathtaking. The number of people shot and killed in our nation's capital over the weekend. And it's just, the Democrats, they say, yeah, well, it's, it was a 3-day weekend. What do you want? How many expect us to gun down over the weekend? Any self-immolations over the weekend, Michael? I haven't checked there should be a website that tracks all the Democrat self-immolations because, the Washington Post isn't going to track it. The New York Times, CNN, they're not tracking it. So we got that going. But pardon me for veering off to Democrat land for a moment there, right out of the I'm telling you. And, in the meantime, we've got a Democrat member of Congress from Maryland who has jetted off at taxpayer expense to El Salvador to visit his great friend and hero, the Democrat Party's great friend and hero, Abrego Garcia. Kilmore. You got to call him Kilmore. Abrego Garcia, that's why they like him, because he, he's a gang member and he wants to kill more. Amazing stuff. His wife, who he beat repeatedly, is too terrified to even visit with him and terrified to say anything bad about him because MS-13 might catch up with her, and she doesn't want that. But the news media ignores all that. Speaking of which, we got some Jake Tapper stuff for you, too. because I was poking around doing a bit of hunting gathering yesterday and came across this Jake Tapper soundbite where he explains he has a son, apparently. Do you think he's the father? And he's got a son, apparently. And his son is in high school, and he plays football. Like regular football? Is it girls' foot? They have girls? Is it like transgender? I think it's perfectly normal football. And he said that his son, he was telling his left-wing Democrat media friends that it's all the same, it's a circle fest in a hot tub, about his son who plays football in high school and wants to be a police officer. And his friends responded by saying, oh, so your son's a racist. Son's a racist because he wants to be a police officer. And then they, exterminated 40% of the black population in the womb because they're not racist. They're just the party of the Confederate States of America and Jefferson Davis and Nathan Bedford Forrest and the KKK and Jim Crow and standing in schoolhouse doors and aborting 40% of the black population. Just don't call them racists and ignoring 10,000 homicides a year, but pay no attention to that. A number greater than the number of African Americans died in the Vietnam War, murdered in the United States every year by Democrats. Kind of remarkable stuff. So we've got that. And speaking of higher education, who was speaking of higher education? Trump says he is considering rerouting. That's the word now. Rerouting $3 billion in Harvard grants to U.S. trade schools. Why would we have $3 billion on hand to give to Harvard? And the corrupt answer to that is corrupt Harvard grads who are now corrupt government servants in the Congress and elsewhere because they're criminally insane, I think, is from Barack Obama on down. Hey, I went to Harvard. Let's make sure that the taxpayers of the United States of America, plumbers and bus drivers, are forking over billions and billions of dollars, and Elon Musk for that matter, to Harvard. Why? Well, because I went to school there. I went to Harvard. I'm wearing my Harvard Club tie. Don't you know who I am? And pretty amazing stuff. And also over the weekend, the New York Slimes, the New York Times, they've got a piece that is a great demonstration of the lack of originality of the American left. They're part of the international left, the global left, too. But you're familiar with Trump derangement syndrome, right? And TDS, we call it, so it's something that even we abbreviate because it's so pervasive, so commonplace now. TDS, Trump derangement syndrome. Almost every Democrat in the country now has a major case of TDS. But the New York Times certainly has a major case of TDS. Each individual at the New York Times, the doorman, the janitorial staff, I think all have TDS. Maybe not the maintenance staff. But they've got TDS up the yin-yang. Can you say up the yin-yang on the radio? The headline over the weekend from the hilarious people at the New York Times, Harvard derangement syndrome. And it's an attack on Trump, claiming Trump has Harvard derangement syndrome. He did go to Wharton at the University of Pennsylvania. Amazing stuff. In my 22 years as a Harvard professor, it begins. Always keep it humble, keep it normal. Isn't that amazing? Oh, you have it right. Is that right? That's a pretty amazing one. In my 22 years as a Harvard professor, he's learned nothing. I have not been afraid to bite the hand that feeds me. In my 2014 essay, only a decade ago, plus a year, pay no attention, the trouble with Harvard called for a transparent, meritocratic admissions policy to replace the current eye of newt, wing of bat mysticism, which conceals unknown mischief. That's what he said. And he goes on and on, but now he's, you see that the Trump has Harvard derangement syndrome because he realized that the taxpayers are giving Harvard University billions and billions of tax dollars every year. And President Trump talked about it over the weekend, as a matter of fact, and he pointed out that Harvard has $53 billion in the bank. How much do you have in the bank, Michael? Do you have 53? Less than 53 billion or more than 50? Less than 53 billion? But Harvard has more than 53 billion. And still they're getting billions and billions from the taxpayers every year. President Trump has had it up to here, and he rightly calls them an anti-Semitic institution, says a gang of anti-Semites runs the place. as seems to be the case across the Ivies, which is why they're called the Poison Ivies, the Poison Ivy League, and all that stuff. But pretty amazing stuff. So I've got that. I want to update you on that, the Harvard derangement syndrome. And Trump says he's considering rerouting $53 billion Harvard to U.S. trade schools. We, very, very honorable to run your own plumbing business, electrician business, whatever it may be. You have a tree business, you have a bricklaying business, you have a paving driveways business, great businesses to own. You hire people, you're self-employed. Don't work for the man, for Mr. Charlie, the whole corporate thing. So we got that going, and I want to share the updates with you on that as well. Also, this is big news. I was very happy to see this morning. FBI, you've heard of them, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and Dan Bongino is the deputy director of the FBI now. FBI they're re-examining now, D.C. pipe bombs, at the RNC headquarters and the DNC headquarters the day before January 6th, which would make it January 5th. And the calendar still works that way thanks to the Gregorians and the patriarchy. You're welcome. FBI examining D.C. pipe bombs, White House cocaine cases, and more. They're very angry at National Panhandler Radio. I pulled their story because they're especially, and the other one looking very closely at, I'd crack this one in a day, I think. The leak from the Supreme Court by a left-wing Democrat radical who graduated from law school, got a job clerking in the U.S. Supreme Court, and then leaked this abortion thing, which led to the would-be assassin showing up at the home of Justice Brett Kavanaugh, who had designs on murdering 3 Supreme Court justices as the Democrats go around shooting Donald Trump and Steve Scalise and Tesla dealerships and police officers. And the Democrat Party is a violent party. It's a criminal party. It's a terrorist party. And a lot of them are self-immolating. But, Michael, would you say enough? Enough of them are self-immolating? That's where the area, it's hotly debated right in that zone. So, amazing stuff. And the FBI director says, NBC Fake News, says the Bureau will pour resources into cases including Supreme Court leak and cocaine at the White House. Now, the reason you really want to get a hold of these stories is because they represent the big lie of Joseph Gergel, as the Reverend Al Charlatan would say, and the propaganda apparatus of the Democrat Party. They lie, they cheat, they steal. When they get caught, they create a whole new pack of lies, and the New York Times gets into bed with them and writhes around, and it's just amazing stuff. The Democrats. So the FBI now looking at the Supreme Court leak on the abortion decision, looking at the cocaine found in the White House. Oh, no, there are no cameras there. We couldn't possibly tell you who left the cocaine in the White House. And the pipe bombs. Here's video of the guy who left the pipe bombs talking on his cell phone, but we couldn't, where there's nobody else around in Washington, D.C., but we couldn't possibly get cell phone records from that cell tower and narrow it down to 3 people the day after it happened. And here we are 5 years later, and, oh, yeah. So we got that. And I got to say, good on the FBI. It should have started day 2 of the Trump administration, but let's just show some results, and that'll be good stuff, good stuff. So we have that coming up. We're at 888-630-9625. A couple of Democrats still on the run from that jail in New Orleans, too. But 8 of the Democrats have been captured, 2 Democrats still on the loose. You know, the big wireless companies, they're pulling one over on us every day. It's time to switch to my friends at Consumer Cellular. Listen, I switched Consumer Cellular. I got a beautiful phone. I was just taking pictures with the phone this morning. Greatest phone ever. I'm getting the same fast, reliable, nationwide big wireless coverage without the big wireless costs and the big wireless hoo-ha that you don't need in your life. But it's not just about saving money on my bill. It's also about not being used by the big carriers there. You know how they are. Do you even know how much your data plan you use every month that you pay for? Most people 50 years old and over they use less than 8 gigs. 8 gigs of data a month. But the big wireless, they want you to shove you into an unlimited data plan, and they want you to pay for it because, you got to cover the costs of the younger people who use lots more data than you do. Consumer Cellular set me up with a service and a phone, a beautiful phone, and it was so easy to switch, I got to say. You get to call and speak to an actual human being on the phone, a human being based right here in the United States of America, not on a space platform in a galaxy far away. You don't talk to a bot. Real human beings who are incredibly helpful. And it only takes about 20 minutes, too. So give them a call on the telephone and make the switch today. All you have to do is call 800-760-0702. That's 800-760-0702. Yes, sir. All right. And, hey, how about the Democrat wanted to firebomb the U.S. Embassy in Israel? Huh. With Molotov cocktails. Perfectly run-of-the-mill Democrat. That's coming up, too.
Did I hear you correctly say that perhaps he was influenced by Gurgle?
Chris here with a list of things that none of us should trust. The Washington Post, the New York Times, anything on CNN. Here's a list of things that I do trust. The Washington Times. Support real journalism for just $1 a week at washingtontimes.com/Chris. The Democrat Party is anti-police. They're the anti-police party, and they're pro-criminal, pro-crime. Congressman Glenn Ivey in El Salvador visiting with what he calls his constituent, Kilmore Abrego Garcia, gang member in prison in El Salvador, and they love him. He's down there to kiss him on the lips. Amazing stuff. Let's take a phone call before we get into the rest of this stuff. Let's go to Jeff calling from Milton, Delaware. Jeffrey, you're on the Chris Plante Show.
Good morning, Chris. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir, I can.
Fantastic. We had a great weekend as well. Family, friends, and then set some time to reflect on the day. You mentioned the D.C. violence, the gun violence. I was wondering if you had heard anything about the violence in New Jersey on the beach shore. I saw the number 72 real quick on the Newsmax this morning, Wake Up America. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that meant arrested, injured, or what that was all about, but it seemed like it was not a bunch of fun lovers, let's just put it to you that way. Wondered if you had heard anything about that.
Oh, yes, I have. Yeah, New Jersey Beach Town shut down its boardwalk after 73 people were arrested. 3 stabbings occurred. Multiple mass brawls broke out. 72-hour period. Memorial Day weekend, because there are a lot of Democrats in New Jersey. We are, of course, at 888-630-9625. Now, I was just talking to Jeff in Milton, Delaware, who was talking about the Memorial Day weekend where Democrats go, I like to say the problem is not our guns, it's your sons. It's your sons. And I keep it short. That's the abbreviated version, your sons. Your sons of what? Newsweek magazine has the headline, Beach Town marred by 73 arrests, stabbings amid Memorial Day weekend chaos. And again, they wrote this yesterday. Last night they updated it, Newsweek magazine. But it's pretty wackadoodle-doo, I've got to say. They say that Seaside Heights, a Jersey town, shut down its boardwalk after 73 people were arrested. 3 stabbings occurred, and multiple fights broke out. And the news media get it wrong from this point on. It's the lead sentence, and they get it wrong. And fights broke out within a 72-hour period on Memorial Day weekend. So you're thinking a 72-hour period. Is that, let's see, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, right? Saturday, Sunday. That'd be that's 3 days, 72-hour period, right? But listen to this from Newsweek magazine. Seaside Heights detective Steve Corman told Asbury Park Press that 52 adults and 21 juveniles were arrested from 6 a.m. on Friday to 6 a.m. on Monday. Now, wait a minute. That's 48 hours. And they just said, just in the sentence before, broke out within a 72-hour period, and then they lay out Friday from 6 a.m., Saturday to 6 a.m., Sunday 6 a.m., and then so they got that. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday. What about Monday? Because I believe the holiday was Monday. That was yesterday. So you have to score it through Memorial Day weekend. You have to score it through Monday. You don't start on Friday at 6 a.m. because that's a school day. That's a work day. That's not part of the holiday weekend. But that's our news media. The town's boardwalk was shut down on Monday, but later reopened for the holiday. Crime was recorded across several New Jersey beach towns during Memorial Day weekend last year, including a 15-year-old being stabbed in Ocean City, an 11-year-old shot in Atlantic City. Wildwood, meanwhile, shut down its boardwalk last year over the holiday weekend due to civil unrest. That's because the Democrat Party has made rioting and mob street violence normal, and they've invited gangs in from all over, at least Latin America and China, to anywhere you've got a gang, the Democrats are inviting the people in. And police didn't say it, but what they meant to say was Democrats. All right, that's the thing, because they've made this kind of violence perfectly normal. Amazing stuff. Got a 21-year-old stabbed in the back, New Jersey town. And who is it? It's our friend Mary Walter, who says all of this is traceable back to the TV show, the cable TV show, called Jersey Shore. Yeah, it's on MTV. It's called The Jersey Shore. And you got, what's the main guy? Yeah, he goes by The Situation, which is not a person's name. And it glamorized and glorified, because Hollywood does this, the worst kind of behavior. And now it's become commonplace because of Democrats. That's the thing about them. Also in Washington, D.C., where I live and where I spent my weekend, and yesterday again on the mall, down with my Rolling Thunder friends and police officers, and having a great time down there. There was the parade, of course, Memorial Day parade, all that good stuff. But listen to this, a violent long weekend in Washington, D.C., where at least 5 people were shot and killed over the weekend. In Washington, we're a small city. We're not a giant city. We're only about 700,000 people. I know if you live in a small town, that sounds like a lot, but compared to big cities, we're a small city. And the square miles, small city. But 5 people were shot and killed over the Memorial Day weekend, including a 59-year-old man. I was watching this on the local news last night. A 59-year-old man who was at home, minding his own business in his home, when he was struck by a stray bullet fired by a Democrat outside of his home. He was sitting in his own apartment and just minding his own business, seated, and a Democrat shot him from outside. And apparently it was just a stray random thing. No big deal. And then this morning at 4 a.m., Tuesday morning, police responded to another shooting on 14th Street near Logan Circle in northwest Washington, D.C. Found a man on the sidewalk who had been shot, and they tried to save his life. The police did, who the Democrats are against, and the Democrats want to defund, and the Democrats accused of being bad. And the man died at the scene. Now, 14th Street, Logan Circle. I go through Logan Circle and up and down 14th Street normally twice a day, and I'm back and forth. Hey, is Thomas Circle. I'm driving my car now. I got my hands on the steering. And so going through Thomas Circle and 14th Street, I'm on an ordinary day, I'm there twice a day. And this is your 14th Street and Logan Circle. Another random murder, because there are a lot of Democrats, and the Democrats, they're against life. They're anti-life. Republican Party tends to be pro-life. The Democrat Party tends to be anti-life. They're not for life. They're against it. They like to snuff it out before it becomes a problem, like so many Democrats. Now, speaking of which, we have the Jake Tapper audio, because this has got to do with the police also and the Democrat Party. Jake Tapper is a former Democrat Capitol Hill staffer, worked for a member of the House of Representatives, whose son married Chelsea Clinton, whose husband went to prison for being a corrupt Democrat in the House of Representatives. And it's all perfectly normal, just normal Democrat Party stuff. But Jake Tapper is doing a podcast with some fellow travelers, fellow left-wingers. And what's this idiot podcast called? Yeah, How Long Gone. Isn't that a racial slur, How Long Gone? How Long Gone, that's not a good name for a podcast, but sounds like, I don't know, the Chinese guy who's the cook on the TV show Bonanza. How Long Gone? Oh, it's How Long Gone? So and here's Jake Tapper with, again, lefties, and his book it's not even his book, it's this guy Thompson's book, Alex Thompson's book, and then Jake Tapper put his name on it so they could get a lot of publicity because the guy couldn't even get published when he didn't have a TV person's brand name on it. And that's what happened. Politico reported that, the left-wing Politico. So here is Jake Tapper explaining that he's got a son who's 15 years old who plays football in high school. It all sounds perfectly normal so far. Does he identify as a woman, or is he transitioning like Michelle Obama or anything like that? And Jake Tapper says 15-year-old son plays football, and then he is thinking about becoming a police officer. And his left-wing buddies immediately attack the 15-year-old as probably being a racist.
My son is 15. He plays football. He likes police. He is just
not the band, the institution.
No, not the band. I don't think he knows what the band is.
My
I don't
son
think he has any idea who
police.
Sting or, no, police, cops. He likes cops, not the TV show.
Like he thinks they're cool. Like, I don't understand. Like, what about a cop?
He likes the military. He likes police. I don't know.
Whoa.
How does he feel about minorities?
He's pro, but I mean, I think the thing is also, but
he's proud. Oh, he's pro. I say he's pro. I thought he was proud, which means he's transgender or something. Because, speaking of which, down 14th Street in Washington, where the man was gunned down and murdered early this morning. I think every lamppost on 14th Street now has a transgender flag on it, a flag transgender, because the left is mentally ill and they're in control in Washington. Congress really needs to take back the District of Columbia from this home rule stuff. It's time that home rule thing came to an end. But isn't that great? So his son is 15 years old and allegedly plays football. Things about becoming a police officer. And then what was the key part of the question there? How does he feel about minorities? And they're all laughing. Well, if he thinks he wants to be a police officer, he must be a racist. Never mind that like 50% of police officers are black, certainly in Washington, D.C. Never mind that.
Whoa.
How does he feel about minorities?
How does he feel about minorities? Well, if he's a Democrat, he thinks 40% of them should be aborted in the womb. And then when 10,000 are murdered in any given year, that should be completely ignored. But you should put a bumper sticker somewhere that says Black Lives Matter while you ignore you scream about genocide in Gaza and completely ignore what's going on with African Americans in the United States. But how does he feel about, and this guy sounds like Slappy the Clown. Honestly, where did he learn to speak like this? He didn't go to college. He went to clown school.
He likes the military. He likes police. I don't know.
Whoa.
How does he feel about minorities?
Let's get that guy's name and we'll post him online so the police know not to respond to his home or if there are any calls from him. Isn't that great? Just amazing stuff. Yes, sir. Linebacker in his football team, Jake Tapper. Right, then after he appeared on this podcast, then he was invited because, oh my God, he's got a son that is thinking about becoming a police officer. He ought to be gassed, The Democrats, they're saving up money to build rail spurs and gas chambers at this point. So, yeah, how long gone? Well, it's long gone now. But because he said that, he was then invited to go on another radical left-wing extremist podcast. Yeah, the Prof G Pod. It's not a real name either. and they ran out of name for podcasts a long time ago. Ours is called The Chris Plant Show. And you can listen to it after we do a 3-hour radio show, and it's instantly a podcast, a matter of minutes after we're done with the actual radio broadcast where we talk to real people, and we don't giggle like transgender schoolgirls about minorities who, again, they use the words, but they don't know what they mean. Fake Tapper, the fake anchorman, on his poor 15-year-old son. I think I put him on suicide watch now because you never know.
He's a gamer. He's a football fan. 15 years old.
A gamer.
Starting linebacker.
School shooter.
On his varsity football team. The Democratic Party has no way of communicating with him. They have no entree into his world. And in fact, it's interesting. I went on a left-leaning podcast, and they asked me about my son, and I said he was, he's a football player, and he wants to be a policeman. Now on another
left-leaning podcast.
And their joke was about my 15-year-old son. Oh, how does he feel about minorities? Like the idea that he wants to be a policeman, therefore he's racist, my son. And I thought to myself, this is why you are losing elections. You're deciding he's a racist because he wants to be a cop. And that's how the Democratic Party talks to men, not just white men, but men.
Not just white men, but men. And see, he racialized it. He racially cleaved it right there. It's now the Democrat Party talks to not just white men, because they speak to white men differently than they speak to non-white men because they're the party of the Klan, as every school child can tell you. Just amazing stuff. Now, this is a big story in the New York Times over the weekend as well, that the Democrats, they've come to the conclusion that they're not communicating well. This is their conclusion. Must be a messaging problem, they've decided. So the New York Times, they ran a big story over the weekend about how screwed up they are, and the Washington Post followed them because the media is a centipede, and the head of the centipede is the New York Times, still to this day. The radical left-wing extremists at Mediaite say, New York Times runs brutal report on top Dems, quote, gathering at luxury hotels, end quote, to discuss $20 million plan for, quote, speaking with American men. Speaking with, they don't know how to talk to men unless they're, hitting them up for a date on Grindr behind a dumpster in an alley where the Biden family shops at a high-end grocery store. Aren't they amazing? So the Democrats, they're really tied up. Oh, no, we've taken a poll, a survey. We have no idea what's going on. But according to our survey, men aren't getting our message. So the New York Times published a hard-hitting report, the radicals pretend, on Sunday, laying out ways in which President Donald Trump has monetized his office. They made that up. But the Gray Lady didn't exactly let Democrats off the hook on Sunday. They also ran a devastating feature on the party's efforts to win back young male voters. Why don't you leave them alone and let them be normal? But you guys don't know how to do that, do you? Now, your mayor of Chicago is talking about Africa Day and the Latine community on Memorial Day. And the Democrats, they send Manderson Pooper out there. And what he used a bad word over the weekend, too, because, it's not easy being a hipster in lefty world. Democratic troubles revive debate over left-wing buzzwords, the Washington Post said. They think that they shouldn't be using words like intersectionality and equity, the jargon they've used. They're inaccessible because they're too smart. They're too intellectual. This is what they've decided, that their mistake is they're too well-educated. They're too verbal. I might suggest they're probably too oral, well, not being too verbal at all. Aren't they amazing? Since the overturn of Roe v. Wade, something being investigated now, overall abortions in the United States actually increased by about 1% last year, the opposite of what the Democrats said would happen. That translates to an estimated more than 1 million abortions in the United States. Pretty amazing stuff. Every one of these lives was precious, as you know. Preborn's network of clinics across the country are strategically located in the country's highest abortion areas and they stand by ready to help support women making difficult decisions about their babies' futures. Through compassionate, loving care and free ultrasounds, I might add, Preborn helps women connect with the life growing inside of them. And once a young mother hears the heartbeat, sees the heartbeat, the ultrasound, sees the movement, her baby's chance of living a nice, long, happy life doubles. Last year alone, Preborn rescued more than 67,000 babies. So please consider getting involved. Your monthly support of $28 makes this mission possible. Life is sacred, of course. As you know, life is eternal. To donate, all you have to do is dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby when you're prompted. That's pound 250, the keyword is baby. Or you can go to Al Gore's amazing internet to preborn.com/plant. That's preborn.com/PLANTE. Yes, sir. Those rascally Democrats. All right, and we are at 888-630-9625. The Democrats, they've got a plan to win back men. I can tell them right now it's not going to work, but they're going to spend $20 million trying to implement it. So give your money to the Democrats if you're so inclined. All right, so much crazy coming in over the transom. I'm still organizing it as we go. Let's go to the telephones right now, Michael. Let's go to Marco, calling from Springfield, Virginia. The great Marco. Marco, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Good morning, Chris. I hope you had a great Memorial Day. Hey, you want to talk about a communication message? Hakeem Jeffries, what an embarrassment he is, and God help us if he ever gets to be Speaker of the House. To equate what happened to George Floyd with Memorial Day is just beyond the realm of believability. I just can't understand how anybody can think in those terms. Memorial Day is to honor those who have made the ultimate sacrifice in uniform to protect this country, not some drug addict that would have died of asphyxiation to begin with. I'm just stunned that anybody could be that stupid.
And you are career Army yourself.
That's correct, and I am totally insulted by that kind of ignorance and that stupidity. It's sad. It really is.
Well, it's outrageous. It's pathetic. Sad is very generous, certainly. I'll give you the skinny on Hakeem Jeffries coming up too.